Hi there, this is John Wilkinson again from History Made Easier, with an introduction and some context to the Vietnam Wars. And note my use of the plural there, wars, because a proper study of Vietnam in the 20th century would identify 3 wars of independence: against the Japanese, against the French, and against the Americans, as well as a civil war, North versus South, Communism versus however you would care to describe Ngo Dinh Diem's regime, that was backed by America, which of course with Ho Chi Minh backed by the Soviet Union and China made it a Cold War conflict too. Though I'll not be looking at that in these presentations, that's a topic in its own right. Now, Vietnam was a war of great significance too. Not counting the fight against the Japanese, for which there's no reliable figures, the wars cost tens of thousands of French lives, tens of thousands of American lives, millions of Vietnamese lives, and more civilians than military. And there are always more left seriously wounded than dead in wars. In addition, there were those fighting in the American-led alliance from other countries, and there were the casualties in Laos and Cambodia to consider too. The wars left Vietnam in communist hands. They led to a civil war in Cambodia, partial occupation of Vietnam by China, and the war against America left America a bitterly divided nation. The French had lorded over the Vietnamese since Indochina was formed in 1887, consisting of Vietnam and Cambodia originally, Laos being added in 1893. The French placed puppet emperors as tacit figureheads, but the administration was headed by a French governor-general, secured by the French military, and administered with the support of French-speaking local officials. At the end of World War I, as early as that, Vietnamese nationalists, headed by a then unknown Ho Chi Minh, petitioned President Wilson whilst he was at the Versailles Peace Conference regarding Vietnamese independence. But it's not thought that President Wilson even got to see their petition. The Japanese invaded Indochina in September 1940, overthrowing the French administration in a matter of days. Their immediate aim was to stop the supply route for the nationalists in China, but Indochina would also become part of their Greater East Asia co-prosperity sphere. That's the Japanese Empire. The Vietnamese fought to free Vietnam from Japanese occupation and from French colonial rule. World War II had changed the whole outlook in Indochina. In Europe, France had been defeated and occupied by Germany, and Japan had seized control of Indochina. And even though Germany and Japan were themselves eventually defeated, this still left French authority across Indochina very much weakened. The French had been demoted to collaborators during the Japanese occupation. To fight the Japanese, Ho Chi Minh helped establish a united front, the Viet Minh, with the Indo-Chinese Communist Party playing a dominant, though secret, role. They had even received supplies of weapons as well as training from the American OSS, the Office of Strategic Services. That's the forerunner of the CIA. The Viet Minh called for national independence and social reform, and so appealed to moderates and radicals alike. Meanwhile, the Japanese kept the French administration, But with the defeat of Germany, they dispensed with the French colonial structure and in its place installed a Vietnamese government under Emperor Bao Dai, the last emperor of northern and central Vietnam. But it would be a government that was of course going to cooperate with the Japanese occupation. But it failed to consolidate its position, particularly in rural areas, and its authority was further weakened by a devastating famine. As a result, the Viet Minh quickly established control in 6 northern provinces, and Bao Dai was forced to abdicate as the Viet Minh took a grip on power in much of northern and central Vietnam. Having done so, on September 2nd, 1945, the same day as Japan formally surrendered, in declaring Vietnamese independence before a crowd of 500,000 in Hanoi, and with an American OSS officer looking on, Ho Chi Minh quoted Thomas Jefferson from the American Declaration of Independence. So, you have important context to the Vietnamese war against the French, and some of the context to the war against the Americans. I hope it proves useful to you. You won't use what I've covered here in any detail, but an awareness of it can be brought into an examination of the long-term causes to the American war, and of course is key context to the war against the French. I can help show you how to make use of it in tutorials. If you're interested, get your parents to get in touch with me at historymadeeasier@gmail.com. I'm happy to negotiate a price your parents can afford. So if I have a slot available, we should be able to work something out. But for now, let me, as always, thank you for listening, and let me wish you the very best of luck with your studies. Cheers.